Hello guys, and welcome to my presentation. It's a huge pleasure to be here. Thank you, Elena, for the introduction. I'm Tomek. I'm from Poland. I live in Wrocław, and it's my pleasure to give you this keynote here. And I really hope you'll have some fun in the next 30 minutes. So the topic of the presentation is the tester, which I know that tells you absolutely nothing. And this is on purpose because I also made a description of the presentation, the abstract, quite vague. So it's not telling much again. Why? Because I wanted to surprise you a little bit. I like my presentations to have a main theme, always have a main theme. So today it's not only the tester, but actually, hopefully this next slide will help you a little bit to see the main theme, and it's the tester. You probably recognize the font. It is from The Witcher. And I know you know The Witcher because I checked it, especially checked it. And The Witcher, the TV show Witcher, was for 8 weeks, the top 10 TV series watched on Netflix in Turkey. So I know that you know The Witcher. So those who don't know this, The Witcher is a famous fantasy books from Poland, from Andrzej Sapkowski, Polish writer. And then there were the games, the Witcher games. There was the Netflix TV show, The Witcher. So I wanted to have this as my main theme for the presentation. I even The Witcher had their wolf medallion. So I created a tester's medallion with a bug on it. So we have even our medallion for our tester. Why The Witcher? Why The Witcher? So I want to have a thesis here. I want to share with you my idea here. I think that testers are the Witchers of IT industry. And let me explain you why. Let me explain you why I think so. Because The Witcher, who was The Witcher in the books, in the TV show, in the games? Witcher was a monster hunter, right? Witcher was hunting for monsters and getting paid for that. And I think testers are doing quite similar thing. Maybe they don't hunt monsters, but they definitely hunt bugs, right? The job of the tester is to hunt bugs down and kill them, right? And so that's definitely one clear similarity, but actually there is more. If you watch the TV show, if you played the game, if you read the book, you actually know that Witcher had two swords, right? And I think that testers also have two swords that they need to use on everyday basis. So The Witcher had a silver sword. Silver sword was for slaying monsters. And I think the second one was steel. The steel was for slaying humans, actually. So let's focus on two swords that testers can have. So silver, you can say there's a saying, right? That speech is silver. And I think that testers also need to have this communication sword, right? As testers, you need to communicate very well with your stakeholders, with your peers, with your business. You need to communicate what's going well, what's not going well, etc. So communication is absolutely critical for testers. But then there's the steel sword. And you can say, again, there's a saying that you can have a nerves of steel. Nerves of steel, which means you have to be pretty stress resilient. And I think for testers, you know that. You need to be really stress resilient, right? When the production is failing, when you see the errors coming up, you need to be calm. You need to be sure that you're moving forward and helping to solve the problem. But there's more. Actually, the Witchers, when they were slaying monsters, they were going to places that no one else would go. And I think testers are doing the same, right? You are digging into these ugly pieces of code, this places in your applications that no one goes, and you're looking if there's not this monster, this bug is not there. So you're doing the same. And last but not least, I work with a lot of testers, and you guys, just like Witchers, swear a lot, right? You're just like this tester's face, like, what the, who did that? Who introduced that? Who did that change? This is you guys. So I hope that at this point, it's pretty clear that testers are indeed the Witchers of IT industry. You guys are the Witchers, okay? So as in the books and everywhere, the same in IT industry, the world is changing. In the books, of course, the world was changing. There was less monsters. There were difficult choices to be made, etc. Witcher's life was getting harder and harder. But I think the same is for testers right now. The world is changing. In the old days, it was simple, right? Just like a Witcher was going from village to village, looking for on the boards, looking for advertisement to slay a monster, just taking a job, killing a monster, getting paid. The same was for testers, right? You were looking for a job, getting the job, finding bugs, killing them down, and getting paid. That was it. This was the old days. But now the world is changing. First of all, we have a problem because, well, not only testers test anymore, right? Years ago, testers were testing, but right now, there are guys who are competing with you in testing, right? And those are developers, right? Developers started to get involved into testing. I remember when I was starting conference speaking in 2015, and I was having my first, I have software development background, actually. I was never a tester. This is a fun fact. So I was giving my first presentations to tester and was like, but the developers and testers, two separate worlds, we need to bring them together a little bit because developers were writing code and testers were testing. And it was like a clear distinction. Right now, we are in a situation when actually developers do test. And actually, as they can code, they usually are automated testers by default. They can automate the tests. So there's more competition in here. It's getting a bit more crowded, right? But also there's more and more people willing to get to the IT industry. And there is like a lot of people who are willing to become a software testers. So what can you do? So there are actually two options right now. Well, first of all, you can react to the situation as taxi drivers reacted to Uber. All right, this is like a picture from Poland. You can see here, Uber equals HIV. This is what Polish taxi drivers were protesting. Uber's equals HIV. They don't want the competition, etc., etc. So you can do it like that, but it doesn't really work. Or you can actually embrace this change that there's more people testing. There's developers starting to test. The world is changing in here, and you need to handle the consequences. And so the consequences of this changing world is that you actually, as a tester, need a new tools. You need to increase your toolbox. You need to learn new techniques. You need to learn new things that are helping you to become more valuable as a tester for your team, for your product, for your stakeholders, whoever there is. Okay. So this is what I wanted to tell to you about today. I would like this to be a story. This will be a story, of course, about the tester. And it won't be just a normal story, but actually I want to make it a 4-act play. So we will have a play when I want to share with you some tools I find particularly interesting and valuable for testers, but I think not that known or widely used yet. Okay, so if we have a play, every play, like, I don't know, Hamlet or anything, that always starts with the characters. So let me introduce the characters we will have in our play. So first of all, we will have this one. And I cannot ask you much questions because we're online and I cannot ask you directly face to face. So let me tell you who will this represent. This is, of course, a sorceress. In the Witcher world, we had a lot of sorceress, right? So here we also have our sorceress of business. So sorceress will be representing the business, right? Because the business is the magic we have no idea about, right? We are tech people and the business is the magic that's happening there. So we will have sorceress representing business. Then we will have our kings, because in the Witcher world, there were also kingdoms, kings, and we will have kings here as well. And who can kings represent? Well, who is like super proud and think they are kings? Of course, the developers. So the king will be representing our development or development teams, etc. Probably I'll focus more on development teams rather than single developers, but just to make sure, kings are the developers, the programmers. And last but not least, we will have a monster, right? Because there were monsters. So we will have a monster. This will be a vampire, but this will not represent any bug, actually. Vampires, you know what they were doing, right? They were sucking your blood and everything, just like managers do. So vampire will be representing a manager. So this will be our managing vampire in our story. So we'll have our 3 characters. And of course, the 4th one, the most important one that we'll be trying to handle all these characters here is our main character, who is the Witcher, representing the tester. Okay, so the story is set up. Let's move to the tools, the tools, the tricks I want to share with you, the things that I want to share with you that can help you as the tester, as the Witcher, to go through the challenges of your everyday work. So act number 1, as in a play. So the title of this act is Magic Meets Sword. Magic meets sword. What can that mean? If magic meets sword, it means that we have magic, therefore business, meeting the sword, which is our king, meaning the development. So what is this story about? So this story is about when business meets development or business meets technology. What happens in there? Usually these two worlds, business and technology, they speak a little bit of a different language. They have a little bit different expectations, etc., etc. So usually when they communicate, there are some tensions in between, right? They have troubles to communicate. You've probably been there thousands of times. It's tricky. Business speaks different language, technology speaks different language, different expectations, different approaches, etc., etc. We have a challenge. So how can you solve this? How can we, as testers, improve the communication between business and technology? Of course, there is a couple of options, and one of them is pretty well known, and it's BDD, right? BDD, behavior-driven development. This is a technique that is, the idea of it is to improve the communication through the test scenarios between business and technology. So we better understand what business expects, and we can verify if we delivered what business wanted, right? Sounds like a good idea? Nah, this is boring. This is boring. BDD was interesting in 2015. This is an old technique. And then if you go to your company, if you go to your managers, etc., and you say, ooh, let's try BDD, they will tell you like, nah, we tried this already. We did it already in the past. It doesn't work. We failed. It doesn't matter that they didn't know how to actually do it or what BDD meant. Usually BDD for people is just like, oh, we'll do some testing with Gherkin or I don't know, JBehavior or whatever. But BDD is much more. It's about communication. But they don't know it. So they think like, we did it. We failed. Boring. Not helping. Get rid of it. So let's go to option number 2, which I wanted to recommend to you. And I wanted to tell you about the technique, which is called event storming. And event storming is a crazy popular technique lately in last years among developers, because this is coming from the domain-driven design, which is for building and defining the architecture of your applications. So this is something that developers are really interested in, but actually this can help testers a lot. And let me explain you what it is and how it can actually help you. So how does this work? How does event storming work? Well, it's quite simple. First of all, for event storming, you need a wall, a wall, just a wall in your office. It can be a mural board, it can be whatever. You need a wall, a big place where you can start putting post-its. So in event storming, we have a lot of cards that represent different things. So the most important card is domain event. So domain event means that something happened. This is a verb in past tense, like, I don't know, user logged in, invoice was generated. So this is a verb that is telling something that's a domain event, something that happened. And this is the most important part in event storming. And there are plenty of other cards. There are commands because there's something that triggers this event. So we have commands that trigger events. We have actors, so our personas who, for example, trigger commands, etc. External system, because some things can be generated automatically. I don't know, the user makes a purchase and external system automatically sends an email, etc. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so issues and rules that, for example, if you have rules, you have some flow with events, you kind of put this flow in, and there are some rules where your flow is kind of splitting into two. Okay, so in general, we have different cards that are representing different things. And now, how does event storming works? And I'm, of course, rushing through this because I just want to give you a high-level picture. But of course, there's a ton of materials online. You can read about this. You can see the sessions on YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so how does it work? We have those cards. And what is the process here? So step one, you put all domain events on the board. So you put all the events that are happening in your system on the board. And of course, moving to step 2, because this was all. In step 2, we are adding more cards. And there's one important thing. The events you put on board, you put them in a chronological order. So you actually have on your board, you have a story of what is happening in your system. You have a story from your business perspective, because, oh, that's one important thing. Event storming, you need to involve both business and technology, everyone in one room. So people from business, testers, subject matter experts, developers, UX, whoever there is. You put everyone in one room, so you get a full understanding, a full flow of your system. Step 2, we add more cards. So we add, I don't know, this commands, we add actors, external systems, issues, stuff like this, all the rules, etc., etc. So you more or less have a flow of what's happening in your application. Then moving forward, it's time to, in step 3, reorganize this, reorganize it, put it into some bounded context, etc., etc. And here we are coming into the area of domain-driven design. So we are starting to look at the architecture, et cetera, et cetera. You create aggregates, repositories. So we're starting to talk the developer language, right? We start talking about architecture. So naturally, the question is, what's in it for me, right? What's in it for me? And let me answer you this question. What's in it for you as a tester? So first of all, the most important thing that not many people see is Well, you can put some lines in here. Let's put this vertical lines in here. And if we call the things on the left given, the things in the middle when, and things on the right then, what you get? You get a nice BDD-like scenarios out of it. Why? Because if you remember, I told you that domain events are verbs that something happened. What it means? They describe behavior. So you can say, okay, all on the left, those are the things that already happened to get us to this point. This is what happens when this happened. Then, is this the result? You have business in there. You have technology in there. You can ask this question. Is this what you're expecting? Is this actually how this flow should look like? You have these rules which you can build your test scenarios on. And this is the biggest advantage. The event storming gives you a nice wall of all the behaviors. You can then put the lines in and see what are the test scenarios you want to have out of this. You can verify this to the business immediately because they are in the room. You can confirm with them whatever you want, etc. And there's one more thing why testers are great for event storming, because testers are great facilitators from my experience of event storming session. Because for event storming, you need a person that asks right questions a lot. And from my experience, testers are the best people who are asking the right questions. They want to get into details. They want to check if everything is actually working in there and makes sense. So first of all, you can bring this technique to the table. You can facilitate this in your team, in your product. And out of this, you can get a nice BDD like scenarios that you can automate later and be sure that this is what is expected from your system. So step 5, profit, right? Yes, there was no step 4. Okay, as we have not that much time, I'll move forward to act number 2. Another technique, another story. The title of act number 2 is fratricidal struggle. And this is a hard word. Fratricidal struggle means more or less like battle between brothers, but it just sounds a bit more epic like this. So fratricidal struggle. So we will have brothers fighting. And what I mean here, brothers fighting, we'll have 2 brothers, 2 kings. Just for the story, let's have a green brother and a blue brother. And those are 2 development teams. And as you can imagine, you've probably been there tons of times, when we have 2 teams that need to deliver something and they need to deliver this together, there's a tension. There's always a tension because they have different backlogs, they have different priorities, they have different ideas how to do this, etc., etc. And especially in the world of microservices, where you have multiple teams working on multiple small applications, almost every feature you deliver is somehow touching a couple of services and a couple of teams. So you have these communication challenges all the time. And the problem is how to actually make sure that this is working, how to test it properly. So how to do this? If we have 2 sides that need to agree on something, how do we solve this in real life? We sign a contract, right? You buy a car, you sign a contract. You lease an apartment, you sign a contract. You start a new job, you sign a contract. So you sign a contract, which is a set of agreed rules. So we will do the same thing in here. So we will have a contract in between those teams on what do they expect from each other. And if we have a contract, we would like to do contract testing. And contract testing for me is absolutely critical. It's a must if you're working in microservice environment. Contract testing is a must. If you're using a tool like Pact or a Spring Cloud testing, Spring Cloud contract testing, doesn't matter. But for whatever tool you're using, contract testing in microservices world definitely is a must. I strongly recommend that. It saves you so much trouble. Okay, so how does contract testing work? I'll give an example based on Spring Cloud contract because it's much easier to explain here. So we have this contract, and for this story, let's assume that we have a producer and we have a consumer. We have a producer, meaning that producer creates something that consumer is going to use. In the simplest world, let's say that producer is producing code, right? On a very basic level, you can say producer produces code. We have some code that is providing some functionality. So what will be the simplest consumer of that code? It can be a client, of course, but even a test, right? The test is a simple consumer. If you have a code, if you test it, you are consuming, you're using this code, this functionality that was provided. And if you know the good practice is that we are having test first approach. So first we write test, then we write code. So in contract testing, we can actually do the same thing. So if we have basic contract testing, I would like to tell you a bit more about something that is consumer-driven contract testing, which is also called a TDD on architecture level. So consumer-driven contract testing, this is what we are going to talk about here today. So moving forward, the contract and Spring Cloud contract, as I said, this is the framework I've been using a lot. Now I'm a huge fan of Pact.io, so recommend it. Spring Cloud contract for example here to explain how contract testing work. Okay, we have the contract. We had producer, we had consumer. The green is producer, blue is consumer. So if we have to deliver something together, who starts the work? The consumer, right? Because this is consumer-driven contract testing. So consumer starts the work. Consumer prepares a contract. And this contract, if you look into this, is kind of like a test scenario. It's just like description of what are the expectations that we have. What are the expectations that we have from our producer? So consumer prepares this contract and consumer sends this contract to our producer. So it gives you like, hey, this is what I want, right? Now, chop, chop, do the work. But it's not really fun, right? Just giving job to someone. So the Spring Cloud contract framework gives you something extra you can give. So you're not only giving your expectations to the producer, but you also give something extra. So we have a little treasure in here that we are going to pass to producer together with the contract. The producer opens that. And what do we have in here? Test. So what does Spring Cloud contract do? Spring Cloud contract, based on the contract that is described, generates automated tests. So the producer is getting contracts and getting automatically generated set of tests that are verifying this contract. It was supposed to be a nice surprise, but actually they got expectations and they also got tests that are failing. So time to get to work, right? So now the producer starts to do the job. It has tests, it has everything. So creates the implementation. When the implementation is done and is correct, then auto-generated tests are passing. So everything seems to be okay. So the job is done. Consumer can start using this. But as consumer was such a nice friend to us, gave us something, we will need to give something in return. So also the producer gives something to consumer. We open this treasure chest, and what we have in here? Verified mocks. And this is something that is crazy useful in the microservice world. Why? Because if you have hundreds of applications, you have two ways to check them. Either you create a production-like test environment where you deploy your hundreds of applications, which is very expensive, hard to debug, slow, etc., etc. It gives you everything, but the cost is huge. Or you mock everything, but then there's a problem. Well, you test against mock, then you have integration hell because you tested against mocks. You have to maintain those mocks, etc. And if you have services that have tons of dependencies, it's pretty hard. Here you get a verified mocks. What is verified mock? It means that this mock one is based on the contract that the both sides agreed. For this contract, there was tests generated that are passing, which means the green producer code actually works like this. It's proven because the verified mocks are built when the test passes, when the green team builds their application. So you get mocks that for sure work as the code in green. If they change something and the contract is failing, their contract tests are failing. So either have to change the contract or they need to fix it. And you don't need to, you have a mocking, but not against just written down mocks, static mocks, but actually verified dynamic mocks. So it's much easier to actually test your application against other applications, which in microservices environment where you have hundreds of applications talking to each other all the time is a must, as I said. Okay, all in all, again, profit. Moving forward, two quick tools I wanted to share with you. Act number 3, a look into the future. A look into the future, guys. I know that we are, as human beings, we are not very good at predicting the future, right? If we did, we'd probably win in the lottery and sip drinks on some beach in Hawaii or something like this. So we are not very good at predicting future. However, almost every week or 2 weeks, we are asked to predict the future, which is called estimation, right? We are asked to predict, how much time will this take or how much work will this take, etc., etc. And this is usually hard. So what we can do in here, how can we explain, especially from trainings that I've been doing, especially estimation of testing effort is tricky because everyone underestimates how testing how difficult it really is. So how can you actually explain to your team? How can you make everyone aware that, you know, this takes time, this is important, this takes time, this is, and so on. So, well, you have a couple of options here. First of all, you can have a nice discussion. You can tell your team, well, this is why it takes that much, this is why it's important, etc., etc. But usually that's boring, right? That's another meeting, etc. There's another meeting, there's another discussion, another talking, etc. Boring. Let's move to something cool. Let's find something that everyone likes. And what is something that everyone likes? The answer is pretty simple, and it's board games. Board games for me is a magical tool that if you take, you know, like serious people working on serious project in serious business, you know, like the serious guys, and you give them board games, you change the serious people into this. You turn them into children, like literally, you turn them into children. So how this works, how we can introduce some board games. There are a couple of tools that are in same time valuable and fun. And one of these that I particularly like is called risk storming. So I wanted to tell you a little bit quickly about risk storming, which is building for building test strategies in general. This is a game created by Ministry of Testing. It has different cards that you have. So you have quality aspect, heuristics, techniques, patterns, feelings. Again, you can see more on the website. You can probably download the board, etc. I think you pay for cards, but they are not that expensive, or even you can download them on free. I don't remember. All in all, this is a game that you can play together with your team, and it has a very simple set of rules, which can, in general, help you to create this awareness in your team. So the game goes like this. So you choose the most important aspects of your or quality aspects in your project. It can be security, it can be performance, it can be whatever. So then you write risk about each of these aspects, and then you play the cards like what can help us, what can, how can we overcome, what technique can we use, what patterns can we use, what can be the risk in here. So you create the aspects of quality together with your team. You discuss this in a fun and engaging way. You discuss this, and then out of this, you have nice testing strategies. And that's quite it. That's quite it. So nice, simple game that can help you raise the awareness of quality aspects and techniques of testing, etc., how this works in your team. And now, well, of course, at the end, profit. So moving to the last one, because we have a couple of minutes left only, act number 4. Again, I wanted to show you a little bit of a game. The act is called Thief in the Kingdom. So moving quickly to that, if you have all things working perfectly well, everyone is happy, your users, these guys who are lucky to use your application are happy, you can feel that everything is working well. And in the same time, you can miss that there is someone in the background which you're not looking at this very moment, getting your client's credit card details, etc., etc. So what I wanted to talk to you about is security, which is becoming an absolutely critical aspect of software development. So if you don't want this, you really need to consider security. And it's not a question of if it happens, because for sure security attacks will happen. There's more and more security threats. In the companies I working right now, worked before, we see more and more attacks trying to steal the data, trying to block the systems, etc. So security is becoming a big thing because there's a lot of money involved. So you need to think about security. And again, a couple of ways how you can do it. Option number 1, again, good old-fashioned discussion. You can discuss again. You can explain why security is so important. You can tell everyone, oh, this is important, but you know how it goes, right? Boring. This will be again a meeting, again the discussion that we're having, again the discussion that we need to have a meeting, a Zoom call, whatever it is. So option number 2, as I said, board games, having this informative discussion in a fun and engaging way. And a game that I introduced in one of my companies, or the company I worked previously, was threat modeling. And I definitely recommend that. This is coming from Microsoft. So threat modeling this is completely open source. So you can download the cards, print them yourself for free, and just play the game. So we have plenty of cards that are representing different risks. As you can see, the cards are colorful, fun, etc. And this is fun to play this game. And what are the rules of the game? So rules is, you draw your system. You try to put all your system, your application on a piece of paper. Then you play, you go for these threads, you check the thread. Okay, here's like a user spoofing. Okay, where can this happen? Are we doing something to do this? Or I don't know, any other security thread like cross-site scripting. Where can this happen? Or SQL injection, where can this happen? So you play all together with your team. So in a fun, engaging session, you discuss all the security threads you have. And then from this, you can log the issues you have and make sure that you solve them. Point number 4, profit. So there's 2 last acts. Fun, engaging way, fun games that you can play with your team and increase awareness. Instead of just having a meeting, you can do it in a really fun way. And this can also be done online. Everything is, online now. So it doesn't matter if you can meet or cannot meet face-to-face. And looking kind cautious of time to move to the epilogue. So what I wanted to tell you in this short presentation is that, well, you guys, first of all, you are witchers of the IT industry, and witchers are cool, which is really good. So the thing is that times are uncertain for testers, right? There's slowdown, it's harder to find a job, more people looking into testing, developers being aware of what testing is and testing a lot. So the times are uncertain. There are some challenges we have. So as testers, you must constantly expand your craft. You must constantly improve your skills, learn new things. And I hope I gave you 4 teasers, because this was just going tip of the iceberg, guys. So I hope I gave you a little bit of a teaser of some techniques that you can try, apply in your project, apply in your team, have some fun with your team, discuss quality in your team in a fun and engaging way. And therefore, 1, increase the awareness of how quality is important and how difficult it is in your team, but also present yourself as a tester, as a master of your craft, of your quality craft, knowing great tools and helping the team to become excellent. And this is what I wish you. I wish you guys to work in the projects where you constantly drive the excellence and high quality. That's it for me. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. And if you have any questions, happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Tomek, for this beautiful presentation.
My pleasure.
A highly creative way to tell all of these software testing related topics. And now we have one hand raiser. Now I'm allowing to talk if there is any question here from Buğra Sezgin. If not, okay. So there is a question. Okay, no. Okay, it's only thanking you for this highly engaging presentation.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yes. Thank you so much again. So there is a question, should we not think of the security of the product during the event storming?
Oh, that's a fair question. Let me tell you like this. I think we should be thinking about security all the time. Last year or 2 years taught me something, taught me something, is that security is right now a critical thing and will become more critical. The security, the threats that we're having, the attacks that we will be prone to, they will be happening. Should we think about this in the event storming? The perfect world, yes, but realistically, what I would say, I wouldn't try to hit too many birds with one stone. If you're doing the event storming, I would say try to get as much from the event storming as possible where it works. You can include security, but then the question is, should we include all non-functional requirements at the same time? So should we think about performance? Should we think about availability, about deployability, about maintainability, blah, blah, blah. And then your event storming will become a session that is monstrous, if you know what I mean. It's like, I would say, let's try to solve one problem at a time, or let's try to solve problems that actually you're in the right moment for. So event storming, it's coming from domain-driven design, right? So it's the main goal in there, and why developers love it. It helps you to build the great architecture. really nicely connects with BDD. So I would use this as a strength and try to have all this understanding of functional requirements from your system. For security, there are different tools like threat modeling. So I would say, in general, yes, we should be thinking about security and other non-functional requirements all the time, but I wouldn't try to put too many things into one tool because you can overuse it. Like if there's a tool for everything, it's usually for nothing, which you probably as testers know very well. I hope that answers that.
I guess it was a really clear answer for that.
Cool. Happy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So, Tomek, thanks again for being here and being a part of our community and supporting us. It was really valuable for us. It was a really, really fascinating presentation for all of us. I hope, and I am sure all of the attendees are really amazed by that. So thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. Hope to see you again.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure. Absolutely happy to be here. Have a good day, guys. Enjoy other presentations as well. Thank you.